Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Food for Thought. Thoughts if it were you. My name is Neo Gentrics. Now, I know I've been gone for about a week, and I had a lot of stuff I had to take care of. Like I said, I had tests, quizzes, things I had to get caught up. But that's life. I am a college student after all, and, well, got to make ends meet. So, picking up where we left off. I originally was having chapters of my book that I already had pre-published. It's not, like I said, it's not the best thing in the world. It was something I did a couple years back, and I was posting a couple of chapters here and there for you guys. And as a result of everything that I was doing, so I will, in fact, post the rest of the book if there's more people who want to hear it. The last episode that I released with the chapter of the book, it wasn't that long, but I didn't get as much listeners on that one as I would have hoped. So on the next one, I'll probably release a little bit more. But for now, we're going to go back to the previous thing I was talking about before. We talked about being healthy. We talked about things you can eat, things you can drink, stuff of that nature, stuff that is actually good for you to make your life a lot better. And one of the things that I had to mention, and I briefly went over it, was how living well and living ethnically plays a key role in being healthy and keeping your body intact, okay? And with that being said, there is a saying that nobody looked back from their deathbeds and said that they wish they had spent more time in the office. Nobody says that, okay? Most people would probably sympathize with that point of view, however, but there are many other things that you might have already looked back on, if not, with regret exactly. At least with a vague feeling that you would prefer to be able to say that you had not done that, or if you had a chance to do it over, you would do it better. Okay? So let me ask you this question. How can you avoid looking back at the end of your life with too many regrets? Okay? This is an issue which humans have been addressing for hundreds, if not thousands or so years, and, at least since the days of Aristotle. For those who don't know, he was a Greek philosopher and a scientist who wrote a number of treatises on ethics, and he's considered to be one of the greatest intellectuals of the Western history. So, but what I'm trying to say is there are 6 ways of living, okay, and keep these in mind. Aristotle suggested that there were 6 basic pursuits or ambitions that might shape individual lives. He explains these, okay? These are what they are. The first one is pleasure, always looking for the feel-good factor. Wealth and material things. Status, respect, and fame, or what's the other word for it? Influence. Next would be power and being able to persuade others of your point of view or get your own way. Next would be knowledge and a moral, virtuous, and ethic approach. Okay? Now, no life is going to be entirely shaped by any one of these things, but it is likely that most of us will see one of these approach as our dominant tendency thing to do. Okay? And as Aristotle suggested, that each approach had some drawbacks which might stop those following them from reaching their full potential. For example, he suggested that seeking out only pleasure left no room for thinking or reasoning, or common sense for that matter, and those who chose to pursue status might find that they were left high and dry when their followers deserted them for whatever God-given reason. Instead, he suggested that we should try to live and act thoughtfully. We should, as he proposed, how do I word this? Live in a way that enables us to explore and reflect on the ordinary happenings of life, as well as the extraordinary. We should basically we should basically try to act out ordinary things in an extraordinary way. Okay? Okay? So, with that being said, if you could look back and say you lived a good life, that means that you've shown courage. You weren't cowardice or impulsive or risk taking, or extreme risk taking for that matter. You had self control. You weren't self indulgent or selfish, like majorly. You had a generous personality. You were very generous. You didn't waste resources for no reason or opportunities. You had friendliness and politeness. You weren't rude, flattering, or any other unpleasantness towards others. You were tactful with discretion, truthfulness, and integrity. You had a good temper, even in the face of provocation, which often means a sense of humor. Because if you can't laugh it off and you're constantly getting upset, what can you do? And fairness. You were a pretty fair and decent person. Now, these same virtues, same things that I told you about right here, Aristotle described also in his Ideal Life paper. And while other people have suggested that compassion and gratitude should also be included, it's pretty much debatable, and it's up to people of that current age. Okay. The next would be considered signs of flourishing. Aristotle also suggested that there were signs that we could look for in our own and other lives to see whether we or they were flourishing as people. He thought that these signs, and indeed the flourishing, would mean that the person was growing as an individual and living a good life, typically, of course. And the signs were the following. They are determined to lead the best life possible and to find the right way to do that, or whatever it was. You will see, for example, that they put their resources and capital, whether personal, social, monetary, towards helping them to live an ethical and virtuous life. Any rewards that come their way are also directed towards that good life as well. Next would be their choices, actions are fully human. Okay, this may be rather a philosophical point, but it is the idea that we as humans are above animals, and we have the capacity to reason and to choose to live within a moral and ethical framework. Okay? Maslow suggested that we had basic needs, such as a need for food and shelter, which must be met before we can think about anything else. Once we've satisfied these, then we can look for safety, security, and then love and belonging, so on and so forth. At the very top of the hierarchy is self-actualization, the need for personal growth and development. The general view accepted by most academics is that the animals are not capable of this, so this is what makes us human. Being able to make moral choices is also a human characteristic. Nobody expects a fox to understand that it's wrong to kill every chicken in a hen house, okay? And if you do, God help you. Okay? They're particularly good at doing good things. That's the next point. In this context, good means particularly human, or the virtues outlined by Aristotle, as I mentioned earlier. He believed that people flourish when they live well, and this is ethical and moral, which makes sense. They are consistent. These people that you can rely upon to do what is right. They act consistently in the way that they should. They take pleasure in doing the right thing and seek to behave the way just because. They enjoy living morally and ethically and value being able to be brave, self-controlled, generous, and so on. Like I mentioned before, they don't do so far the external rewards and recognition, but because living in this way is the right thing to do, it brings its own rewards. But you have to be able to see it this way to be in order to actually accept it. Okay, they act well and they think well. They explore how to behave well and also reflect on their own behaviors and learning so that they can grow and learn even more. This is how you know that you're living well and you're doing what you're supposed to, despite what the world throws at you. All right. Finally, it certainly is true that the virtues discussed by Aristotle are very deep rooted in the human psyche, and particularly characteristics like fairness. Aristotle suggested that, if we can live in this way, or at least, strive to do these things and occasionally succeed, then we are likely to be happier. I mean, he suggested that even if things go wrong, it's still better to act ethically, and many people use this as a basis, for resilience. But overall, I mean, we will be happier if we do, if we at least try. His view was that if all else was equal, he would be happier having lived an ethical life, than an unethical one. And he felt that applied to most people. I mean, it is a very human characteristic, and that is the basis of his philosophy. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter, in all honesty, how you live. It matters what you do when you live. And, a lot of people don't ever stop to consider this. They think that because they're doing what they're doing, that it's right, and that's all there is. It's not as simple as that, There's different kinds of ethics, different kinds of ethical and living morals and behaviors that people have to consider and do. And I think Aristotle, and this is just my opinion, this is one of the few times you'll hear it, has a good point on what he's saying as far as like how people should act and the way they should do things. Don't get me wrong, okay? Some of his stuff that he says, some of the stuff that he's written, I kind of question myself, and I'm just kind of like, why would you do that, or why would you say such a thing? But then there's times like where people do something that's actually smart for once in their life, and it makes sense. We all have stupid moments in our life. We all do dumb stuff at some point. If it wasn't for the sake of those dumb mistakes, we wouldn't have the rules and regulations, things that we have now in place to help keep us in check. Now, granted, there are still some people out there that are just straight up stupid, and they will do the most outright, most outlandish, ignorant, dumb thing that they can find, which then sets a rule or a restriction for other people because someone else did it. Why do you think we have signs that say don't dive into the shallow end of the pool? Obviously, some idiot has done it before. There's things like this, simple things we don't even think about, that happen as a result of people just not, living right, not doing what they're supposed to do. And they disregard other people around them and, put them in a bad position. And then when that person screws up, they're quick to say this is all your fault, when in reality, it actually relates back to you. Because what that person's doing wouldn't have never affected you had you not been where you were doing God knows whatever it was you were doing in that area. In some people's cases, traveling to another country simply because they wanted to, it's fine. But if you're traveling because there's someone over there you wanted to meet, because of whatever ever reason, but you have a wife back home, but then something happens and you end up in trouble, and you want to quickly blame the person that caused it, well, think about this for a minute. Why the heck are you in that country when you're not supposed to be there? These are just some thoughts to consider. Like I said, this is food for thought, thoughts if it were you. This is stuff that you have to think about for yourself. Consider what it would be like to be in the other person's shoes. Had what happened to them happen to you, what would you do? What would you do? Well, that's it for my 100th episode. I'm not going to keep it going any longer. Again, like I said, if you have any suggestions, things you would like to hear, things you would like to hear me talk about, things you'd like to hear me bring up and or discuss, or have someone else come on with me and discuss, please feel free to hit me up on my Facebook channel. It is facebook.com/StrikerFusion, on my Instagram at NeoGentrics, or on my Patreon page, or here on Anchor. Under NeoGentrics, Food for Thought. And have a great rest of your day. And don't forget to check out my buddies Gloria TP5 and a few others. I can't remember their names at the moment. Wow, that's kind of sad. Check out their channels. They got some really good, interesting information on them. And I guarantee you'll enjoy listening to them. Use them as a good example of how you should probably live your life, and ways that even if life brings you down, you know, you still manage to get back up on your own 2 feet and keep on going. You know, I know everyone's heard the phrase, try again. But to actually put it into effect and believe that it's actually going to happen, that someday, eventually it'll work, within reason and common sense, of course, you know, you'll do just fine. And both me and Glory at TP5 are prime examples of this. We never gave up, and here we are now. More successful than we were in the past. We're not millionaires, but here we are. We're making progress, we're moving forward, and God has blessed us thoroughly. So enjoy the rest of your day and be blessed.